So it's good to be with you here again. It's always nice to start with the KS Slav 1 codes. The music helps too. Music is a beautiful form of nourishment. I've been speaking about often the expansive idea that we have about what actually nourishes us. Um, we have food, obviously, and food is in so many ways at the base layer and level of what nourishes us. As we have food, and then of course we go into water, and then we go into the breath, and then we go into the sunlight, and then also we have sound, vibration, music. This is why many times we're feeling not so great. We listen to some music, it nourishes us. There's an energetic exchange that happens with positive music and sound and vibration. So sound is in so many ways food. It is how we sustain ourselves and move our energy, right? Also thoughts, what we're watching, what we're taking in and conditioning, what we're reading, what we're conversations we're having with individuals. This is all a form of nourishment in a certain regard. There's a certain interaction of energy that's happening there, and all of these is the way. All of this is a part of our diet. It's a part of what we consume, what we interact with, what we exchange with, and as we transform into ourselves, as we come back into ourselves and recognize that love isn't in any external place, it is found at the source of what makes us and what makes everything. And as we come into that source, we can continue to recognize that our consumptive patterns in many of the more material forms of, diet or consumption, etc., are slowly transformed into more creative habits. We can do anything. We can eat a meal. We can have a relationship. We can watch a movie, and we can do it in a way that's deeply consumptive and almost vampiric-like. Where we're needing something from it. We're needing to fill some void that we think we can fill, maybe from moving into this thing, but at a certain point we recognize that the void never was really filled by this consumptive intention. But as we transform all of our ways into a more creative energy, a more expansive, value exchanging experience, where we're not so much looking at what always can we receive from something. We're seeing that in the giving, in the exchange, in the conscious mindfulness and the attention, the kind of presence that we're bringing to a meal or a conversation or watching a movie or going into nature, etc. This is where we start to see that the exchange of energy is really where the fulfillment lies. It's not necessarily coming from the place of consuming or filling a void that seemingly is going to, bring us to some place of balance, which never really happens because we are often at times forgetting, the fact that the exchange is very important. And this interplay with energy and seeing everything as a living aspect of consciousness. Everything we come in contact with really is in some form living because it's made from this same source. In a recent meditation I led, at the end of the meditation, we were bringing a certain compassion and acceptance and love and appreciation for just the inanimate objects, the chair that I'm sitting on, the computer I'm looking at, the coconut water that's, sitting on the table. Everything in the environment is an aspect of this living consciousness. And it's not that we are going to always be having a party with inanimate objects, that we come across. It's just simply that there is a certain subtle sacredness that we begin to see with everything. And it's in this sacredness that we begin to transform everything, almost like, everything we touch turns into gold. Because through this living exchange of energy, where we recognize the source of love is coming from within, it's not coming from any external place. This is ultimately how we begin to transform moments, transform relationships and experiences, opportunities, circumstances that may seem very challenging. And of course, we may have had our fair share of that in 2020. And of course, just going through our whole lives, 2020 was just 1 year, right? We've all been here for a certain period of time, and we will continue to be here for a certain period of time. So, this is a great intention to have. So it's nice to be here with all of you on Zoom. We do have an Instagram going. No one can hear anything on Instagram other than what I'm saying. So feel free to share, whatever you want to share through the Zoom as a safe space here. we also always start with this intention of creating this shield, this Mahark shield, this 12th dimensional shield around us. And much of the message will kind of go down this route of today of our self-reliance and understanding that I'm just simply here to share a message of what has worked from my experience and what continues to work. I'm not your guru. I'm not your master. I'm not in any way some authority that is external, externally greater than what you have within. And so this is an important reminder always, especially when we come into groups, to connect to ourselves, to create that shield, to, connect to the highest aspect of what we can receive and exchange within groups or dynamics like this, because we all hold different energies and we're all opening ourselves up, obviously, to a vulnerable space, being in a connection like this, being in a discussion like this of spiritual topics and the nature of our individual awakening and ascension. And so it's important that we stay hygienic in our process with that. And this is why we always start with that energy and that intention, because it's often forgotten in spaces like this, And I think this year, as much as we've maybe have spent a lot of time alone, maybe too much time for some of us. It may feel like that. There's also a beauty to the aloneness, especially in the process of our journey of awakening, because we start to very clearly understand what is our energy and what is something else's. And where do our boundaries lie? What do we really understand deeply about ourselves versus what are we just kind of parroting maybe about what we hear from some teacher or some friend on the path or something. What have we actually come deeply into as a knowing within ourselves? This is extremely important because in the coming times, the self-reliance aspect is going to continue to intensify in its importance. It always has been this, but at least it's going to be revealed to us, in our experience of how how this is really the name of the game at this point. And again, it always has been. But to have a clarity in our own direction and a knowing in our own direction and a confidence in that direction and the choices we make and the energies that we interact with, the energies that we accept, the teachings that we want to interact with or engage in, excuse me, having an awareness as to what we really are willing to engage in, not, not engage in, excuse me. This is coming down to having a deep inward knowing and listening to what our heart is guiding. And we may not always have a clarity with that. Oftentimes on our path, we don't. And in a time where, and in a planet where we've been cut off from our previous memory, we've been cut off from our higher vertical connection, an understanding of what is the true purpose of a connection to our higher self. Well, it's a connection to our avatar level, our 12th dimensional level and beyond of our multidimensional self that has and knows the way in which we are to be guided, the direction in which we are to take in all moments, really. And the more in which we trust in the inner guidance we're receiving, that may be very subtle. It may come in symbols. It may come in a message. It may come in some inner heartfelt sense of what it is that we are to act upon and speak or feel or think, etc., contemplate. Developing the relationship with that vertical channel is of the highest importance at this time, because in a time where the physical dimension continues to get more and more chaotic, there's more and more change happening, more and more expansive, expansion and contraction that can be both elating and also quite painful. Having the connection to our inner guidance is really everything, because as much as we would like to give our not necessarily our power away, but as much as we would like to have guidance from the external, get advice or have some sort of I don't know, reading on where we should head or what we should be doing, this can all be helpful at certain times. But at the same time, it's always to be pointed back to our own self-reliance, and our own inner guidance, where we can have trust in the choices we're making and the direction we're taking. And also just a trust in the overall unfoldment of the journey as a whole, where even if we're confused at a time or unclear or unsure or, in the depth of our own suffering and pain, there is still a trusting in where things are headed, and not necessarily knowing where things are headed, but just a trusting that things are headed in the direction of our highest good. And I did a video recording before this where I was just speaking on the notion of the kind of simple silence that's felt often when I just maybe go in nature. I feel most of us can relate with this, go into a forest where there isn't much sound and there's just a eerie silence. Maybe you're just hearing, at least in the winter up here, you're hearing the snowfall or the wind or the birds or, a rabbit go down the path or something. But there's a certain simple silence that emerges in these spaces that we are humbled back to the reality that the complexities and the drama that the mind makes life out to be, generally because of the pain that we're feeling in the present moment and then projecting some future desire or purpose or some future outcome that seemingly is going to save us from something, or maybe it's not. Maybe the future is filled with much fear and there is this hell that is impending, an apocalypse that's coming. But when we come back to this essential silence in nature, this kind of foundational essence to life, there is a certain humbling to all of that, where all of that becomes irrelevant, even just for a moment, where all of that just kind of dissolves. And we come back to the silence of ourselves, the silence of nature, and we see the simplicity of life. That maybe if we had to, and we just had to camp out in this forest where the world falls apart, we would actually be okay. Things would be fine. We may lose the kind of dreams and hopes and fantasies that we may have had to have some sort of worldly success or climb some ladder or achieve some status or find some relationship or whatever. But yet there's still a foundational knowing that there's an okayness within it all, right? There is some sort of foundational safety net that is always there, right? To like the grandmother arms to always come and hold one in that loving essence, that acceptance, that no matter what we have done wrong, no matter how we have gone off the path or whatever, we always come back to this foundation, this accepting love that is always there and always available. And so this isn't really just found in a forest or on some beach or in some beautiful geography. This is found at the core and the depth of our own silent heart. This is found in the depth of our own contemplation, in the authentic looking at ourselves, the honest looking at ourselves and our habits and our actions and the principles we're either upholding or not upholding. This is where that's found. And so as we find this, we may naturally be more and more pulled to natural geographies and beautiful landscapes and places that are maybe less and less involved with the synthetic creation of our cities and the chaos that is emerging within a falling apart world. But it's not dependent on that, which is really important. And so I'm just simply sharing all of this because, as I was reflecting on just my own path in this regard, sharing and teaching and being a guide for people and all of that, and people coming and listening, and the message can never be lopsided on the degree that there is some, teacher, guide, master, guru, etc., that somehow has something that you don't. They may have gone along a path that may be more matured. There may have been more responsibility that they've taken on at the time that they're sharing or what have you. And each of us may be in certain levels. I know each of us are. But the reality is we all do have the access to what is here and what is now. And in the spaces, at least that I'm creating here, is that there is a certain opening of resources to the teachings of all times that are available here and now. All the systems that have ever been on this planet and have ever existed in this universe are now here on the planet. They've been here for some time, but some of us are just coming into this. But the most advanced systems that you could possibly come into that can provide the doorway, the gate, they're the gatekeepers to an experience of knowing yourself, knowing your eternal nature, not just, yourself as this body, this mind, this, person that you call, your name, etc., but your eternal self and your original self and every dimensional space that you exist in now, every time space and parallel reality that you exist in now, every place in the universe that you currently inhabit that you may not know of, that you may have not remembered. All of this is available for each of us to remember progressively. And it takes time. It could take decades. But the reality is all of the tools are available now. It's just a product of whether we're willing to humble ourselves to listen, whether we're willing to actually seek these out, and how much we've actually attuned to what we call the ultimate desire. The ultimate desire is simply and has been always the desire that is fueled every other desire we've come into. every desire for food or sex or achievements or love or a friend or going to some place in the world. Every desire is fueled by this original ultimate desire. And on a practical level, we can say that everything we're seeking is always just to come to a place of love, peace, balance, a space of truth, an authentic, honest look at our life, not an illusion, not deluding ourselves, coming to an honest look at who we are and seeing ourselves, knowing ourselves truly. This has always been what we've been seeking. We've just sought it out in so many different ways. At a certain point, like for all of you listening, anyone listening would only be able to hear this, would be a recognition that ultimate desire reveals itself through awakening to the fact that every desire has only ever been this desire to know ourselves, to know love, to know our truth, to know what joy truly is, to know what is deeply fulfilling for ourselves, not what has been taught or conditioned, what is actually deeply fulfilling to our experience. And so as we merge into that ultimate desire and continue to come back to it, it is the guidepost for everything in our experience. And this time, above any other time that the planet has ever seen, would be the time then to continue to devote all of the attention upon this ultimate desire, to continue to dissolve the illusions, the falsehood, the delusions that and ignorance that we may have come into about our experience, about our habits, about who we think we are, what we think we are, what we think we love. All of this is to be dissolved in the face of this ultimate desire, because this ultimate desire is what is going to continue to return us back to this home, this feeling of home. And we know what that feeling feels like. We all have physical homes and things like this, and we've returned to it and we felt it, but it may have been fleeting. It may have gone away because, of course, this external home is just a symbol, a mirror of the internal home that we've been seeking. So this is an eternal process. It's not a one moment thing. There is no end to the route. There's not necessarily some final destination, as much as every tradition has presented some level of that to a degree to at least paint a picture. Of course, when we come to it or we taste that fruit, we realize it's just a joke. It's always been just some kind of fantasy. And often this is what we look at when we fall prey to the images or symbols of this ultimate desire that are figments of it. You know, these kind of more human desires that we think are going to fulfill something and keep us stabilized for an endless period of time, but that inevitably we face the next challenge, or we face the next release of emotional trauma, or some sort of situation that brings something else to the forefront. So the recognition here is that this process is eternal, and there's no place in where it ends. There's no time in which the practice just stops, or there's no times where we just let up. This isn't to perpetuate some hustle of a seeking quest, like we're constantly meditating and doing all this work and just focusing so hard and straining ourselves. There can be an effortlessness that emerges here. However, this ultimate desire never fleets. It never will go away. It will always be what will be the focus. It's just that as we continue to merge into it and feel into it and see it as the only real focus that's worthy in our experience here, to know truth, to know the original source of who we are and the original love in which gives way to all things, this is what we become then. We merge with it. Right. And so then we see that to know ourselves as this light is not to go and seek out light. It's to shine the light upon the ignorance, the darkness, the illusions, the untruth, to be a walking vessel of this, however painful that may be, and however others may want to put you on the stake or whatever for sharing what you have to say, or being who you have to be, or doing what you have to do. This is all going to be necessary for no other person but yourself. And so this is a reminder for us all, including myself. We're all receiving this message together today because, in regards to this kind of final part of this three-part series I did this year, or in 2020, it was all, there's so many elements to cover. There's so many nuances. Even I was doing a video recently just to summarize the whole delusion of COVID. I mean, there's just so many attempts that we can make on every level. We can talk about the simple fact that viruses don't transmit the way we think we do. We can talk about the fact that the PCR test is a joke. We can talk about the data is completely blasphemous. We could talk about Illuminati that has ruled the world for a long time. We could talk about the transhumanist agenda that has been here for millions of years. We could talk about all kinds of things, but the reality is all of these things are, going to be debated till the end of time. What isn't debated is the knowing of this ultimate desire in your heart, and the knowing that truth above all things is the only thing we're really seeking. And so to engage upon that within our individual experience is really the only game at this point. And it will navigate us to more and more truth uncovered within the external world. We will see through the delusion of what we're being presented in the mainstream narrative. We will see through the delusions of the shame culture that has emerged this year and brought to the surface of how relationships in so many ways were not really true relationships because there was no real intimacy. And this is why we see the breaking apart of so many friendships and family circles and communities, because it is all just built based on belief and trauma and pain bodies. And yet the deep connection that we've been seeking within has not been with any external form or any external person, but within ourselves. And when each person takes that upon themselves to engage in that, then this is where true relationship can emerge. So in the further dissolution and dissolving of relationships and falsehood and all of the above that will continue to unfold in the coming time, we'll see more and more where truth is the only thing to uphold. This is what continues to return us back to this silence that I spoke about, this love, this peace, this joyfulness in a consistent way, no matter how the external world is appearing, no matter what's falling apart, no matter if the economy crashes, no matter if they're trying to force vaccines, no matter if the whole world is against you, it doesn't matter. Because the only thing that really matters is a return to this essence within each of us, and we each have a personal relationship with this. It's not necessarily just this one absolute kind of idea or truth. Of course, we can point to it, but we can never actually kind of point to it with words. We can't grasp it. We have to feel it. We have to come to know it. So, I'm simply sharing this message in a way that hopefully is felt. I mean, of course, we can get into a billion different practicalities of how we navigate 2021. Like I said, 2021, 2020 was like child's play to what is to unfold in coming times. And to prepare for that is everything we're saying here. It's not necessarily in any specific nuance of some worldly action that has to, play out or be done. Because that's obviously specific to each of us, how we'd like to prepare, where we'd like to move, what we'd like to do, who do we want to be with, what communities we want to be aligned with. This is all going to be a product of our own individual choices. However, understanding that the resources are available, I've attempted to provide as much as I can. I mean, we're all doing that in our own way. But the simplicity that at least I like about even just the topic of the ultimate desire and recognizing this within all of our moments, it continues to shine the light, and bring truth where there's untruth, bring light where there's darkness. And so this is my initial message for today. There's a bunch of new people coming in, so it's nice to see all of you. I do want to leave it open if there's any shares or comments or questions, at present and specific to what I've shared. I wanted to keep it kind of short and sweet today. Just I know this is the nature of the energy I'm in personally, and I feel we just got to kind of like cut to the shit at the present time, because it really is a breaking point. Breaking point isn't maybe the best term. Splitting would be a better term. There is a splitting occurring. It's already been occurring for a long time. 2020 just revealed it. 2021 will make it more concrete. When we speak to things like transhumanist agenda and all of this is not to be taken lightly. As much as we can return to our source and know ourselves as this, we have to make specific choices so that we don't go down a path that is certainly a path of no return, because there is one. And that has already begun to occur over the past decade. And this happens through an understanding that our bodies are sacred. And when we allow things into our body that is not sacred, or things that we, that is a threat to the nature of our body, and increasing amounts of quantities of that coming into our body, that could start in just the basic level of pesticides and the toxic air and the chemtrails and the soil that's been raped of its enzymes, the water, The fluoridated water, the air that we're breathing constantly, the sun that the true rays can't even get through, the net field that's been created around this planet. There's so many different levels to where we've been allowing things into our body over the years that progressively we may have gotten more and more aware of, and continue to purify and cleanse, and then become the gatekeepers of the portals. The skin, the nostrils, the eyes, the mouth, the ears. These are all the ways in which things enter the body, at least in this dimension. So as we become the gatekeepers of this, we understand that moving one step further now into microchipping, into a whole new paradigm of vaccination, et cetera, et cetera, we're seeing that the breaking of those boundaries and the intrusion of those barriers, which is the skin. The skin is the barrier from the external, what we see, and the internal, what we don't see. We don't see our organs, so this is a spiritual metaphor as well. So the breaking of the skin and the breaking of the boundary there is extremely important. And we would like to know, obviously, everything that possibly enters the body and be aware of how it interacts with the body. What is in these substances and tools? How do they eventually interact with us on the long term? It's very quick that we will see how a certain food maybe will interact on the short term, but very small amounts of pesticides or small amounts of things that we consume each and every day. And then, certain things like what we're facing in the coming times of vaccination and the further stepping into transhumanism. This is the breaking point. There's a clear breaking point here, because there is a clear point in which the body now is merged with synthetic technology. And when it wraps within the DNA and starts to merge in the various levels of our being and our multidimensional anatomy, that's not just on this physical self. This is where the trapping starts to occur. And this has happened many times in our billions of years of history, of race lines that go back a very long time and into many other places in this universe. This has been a storyline that's occurred many, many times before. So we're at the point now where we have a choice once again. It's a beautiful choice, because coming and being a part of this reset that we're in on this planet is a reset that affects the entire universe, the entire Ekaveka. Ekaveka is another term for our universe. This is a reset that happens only once in a very long period of time. So there's such a beautiful opportunity to be a part of this, because that with that reset comes a certain opening to the awareness of our multidimensional avatar self, coming back to our original Christic contract, the true upholding of our eternal nature, a remembrance of who we are within the eternal universe. This is not just a remembering of past lives. This is an understanding of where we reside within the universe, where we can travel to, where we have gone, where we are going, and where we are now. This is the real discussion of enlightenment. It's not just becoming, just this endless peaceful blob where we exist in nothingness. It's enlightening ourselves to the eternal structure of the universe, and that structure of the universe being the macro of who we are, our template, our individual template. So to reside within the organic structure of ourselves is, of course, important. I feel everyone here listening knows this already. I'm speaking to the choir, but the reality is that the intensification of that agenda will continue to occur. So this is where the splitting happens. And so in the next decade, we'll continue to see the splitting in more and more of a reality. I know in my personal world, like many of you may experience as well, is just a simple splitting of just an unawareness of a lot of the other things that go on in the world. Unless we actually put our attention there, there's no real effect, because it's not in our reality. And just this simple example, although it may still physically be in the reality, on the third dimension, as we start to play into the three and a half, fourth dimensional worlds, we will start to see the actual physical splitting, where in a sense, a completely new world can be possible. But this doesn't just happen overnight. Like, a lot of the new age cultures talk about, like, we're going to 5D tomorrow and we're all saved by, I don't know, Donald Trump or something, it's not the way it works. There's an effort here. There's a real amount of effort, right? But this is not a rushed effort. It's not like some urgency where you got to do all these things. And, if you're here, if you're listening, if you're content in this moment, at least able to listen to this, well, we're fine. We just got to continue to be fine, right? That's it. So, if there's anything that wants to be shared from those on Zoom, if you're on Instagram, then feel free to join in the thing. I posted a bit higher. There's a few more key pieces that we're going to get into that are some more practical elements that at least I'm exploring. And this is a part of my personal world that others may be privy to and or not. So we will kind of dive into that, and then we'll finish with another meditation similar to what we did last weekend, actually, for those that weren't here. And I have a couple diagrams to share too. But if you do want to share something, then just say so in the comments or unmute yourself. Who's on Zoom or on Instagram? Hey, brother. Nice. Coming on Instagram late. This is recorded, so you'll be able to watch it later. So just a note in the middle of this, I've been finishing a bunch of recording in regards to the purification process. Many of you have been going into or messaging me about physical purification, detoxification, releasing toxicity. Of course, we know this isn't just on the physical level. There's a whole degree of multidimensional facets that we have to look at. And if we don't, the physical isn't really going to do that much. We may feel lighter, we may feel a bit healthier, but we have to look at the full process. So that process will happen in an infinite amount of ways. Some people start more physical and then they deepen into the energetic. Other people are deeply in the energetic and emotional, and then it manifests as wanting to release weight in the physical body, toxic buildup, physical weight, etc. However, I've done a whole new video series that's almost complete that is going to walk everyone through that whole process, at least the general essence of it, because I'm not guiding you a step by step that you have to follow because it's so individual. Everyone's going to go about this differently. It's not, and I don't recommend everyone doing it the same. However, I've done my best to basically summarize the past decade of my involvement in the nutritional field, breatharianism, fasting, detox, juicing, everything. In at least of a general way. It's not in every detail, but at least in a way where everyone can understand the basics and the fundamentals and the principles to apply, and then engage in that process however you'd like. Now, this without the conjunction of a depth of self-inquiry, a depth of bioregenesis of our energetic anatomy through Law of One freedom teachings and that work, in my opinion, that's the most advanced light body system on the planet. And everything else in the New Age pales in comparison, in my view. So that's all obviously all available for those that want it. And so all of that in conjunction becomes really practical, because we're working on it on different levels, and we're not rushing the process, but we're understanding that we have to look at all the levels because, I don't know, personally, I've seen it all. I've seen people detox from cancer and the most amazing things, and then they're back on it, and then they end up with cancer again because they didn't address other issues, right? I also seen people who I view to be highly awakened and deeply resolved in their emotional space that are hugely overweight, from a basic definition. Again, there's no one size fits all, right? Then we can't compare ourselves to anybody. There's so many layers to how that, can unfold, right? So the more that we address that within ourselves and understand our own individual path, the easier it will be. Right? So if there's no comments at the moment, I'm gonna just share a diagram here, if I can find it. I've shared this one before. I just want to reiterate it. Oh, there's a comment. I see a lot of my connection actually waiting for the vaccine. Can you share a bit more light on the agenda? If anyone takes it, are they doomed for a long time to come? I am concerned with this stuff. Well, this is a really touchy subject, obviously, and I'm not going to speak like I know the future. And what I also will speak to is that the miracle of grace or the miracle of source always has the opportunity for healing. There's in a sense always the opportunity for some miracle to occur that's beyond any conceivable idea of what I could say or anybody else. At the same time, it's like, well, sure, we can grow back our arm, there's a miracle that can happen, but if we cut it off, there's a good chance it's not going to grow back, right? So in the realities of the vaccine, there's so many elements that are very similar to this. Everything you can look at when you look at it, it relates to so many layers progressively that intensify the disconnection of one's organic nature to a synthetic or technological, essentially computer or network. when conspiracy theorists and shit are talking about 5G and connecting all these dots, much of them don't maybe do it in the best way, but they are correct. 5G and the network of this system is really the essential aspect of us not going on the internet. It's existing in the internet. And the only way that you can exist in the synthetic internet and be completely connected into it is that if you have also those synthetic aspects involved in your body. Now, this has already been at play previously. So if people have been getting vaccines, in recent years, chemtrails are coming through the skies all the time. It's in the water. It's pretty much everywhere. Nanotechnology and synthetic toxins that start to merge with the body. Now, it just hasn't been done as much of an intensified way as what it will begin to be done now, and kind of progressively as we move into. So getting one vaccine is one thing. Getting a whole bunch more doses is a whole other thing. Continuing to go down that path is where the kind of breaking point lies. So there's still kind of a gray area, but I would say that any breaking of the skin with synthetic or technological objects that are going to be merging into the networks of your neurology, the networks of your brain, your nervous system, your energetics, this is where it ends. This is where the path starts to split, and the pulling into, like I said, this has been happening for millions of years, because this whole universe, this entire time matrix we exist in, has been primarily ruled by an AI God matrix. This has been this was the original fall from Lyra, as described in the Voyager's 2 books and the Kaelonic science work. The fall of Lyra was the fall from Eden in the Bible. The fall of Lyra is our 12th dimensional Stargate. It's the point in our time matrix where we are likely all from, many of us. That point, that breaking point at the 11.5 dimension, was essentially where the breaking point of the organic structure of the universe was falling into the synthetic matrix. This whole universe is a fallen black hole matrix. Now, when we speak to this, and we speak to the AI God ruled universe, we're speaking to a network of synthetic structures. I'm not going to get into too many details because it's really complex, but this synthetic structure of an AI God network is essentially what now is happening, and what we're being tapped into or merged into on this planet. At least that's the attempt, because this is the final conflict. When I spoke to this recently in a message, I spoke to the idea that we are in the end times, the final conflict, meaning the final conflict is the end point, the reset point of this entire time matrix. This time matrix has existed in for hundreds of billions of years. So when we're speaking to this and we're speaking about this planet, the reason why this planet is so important is because it is a figment from our 5th dimensional version of Earth, which is Tara. There's an explosion there that broke off, created all 12 planets in the solar system. This planet in particular has a stargate that gives us access to the higher aspects of the tree of life, which is the Cathara grid, not the Kabbalah version, but the Christic version. That stargate gives us the doorway to the higher versions, up into the 7th dimension, and like going all the way up. So the reason why this planet is so important, because it has a key gateway. It's a key stargate. This planet in particular, if it falls, the whole time matrix falls. Now, we have already gone past that point. We're already good. However, there is still attempts being played out currently where the fall path, or the black hole path, or the path where the splitting of into that AI network is continuing to intensify in its trajectory. And so, the vaccine and all these things is all a part of it, but there's many other elements to it, and it's going to continue to progress and be presented. But the splitting point already has occurred. For those who've awakened, it's already been happening. And like I said, I'm speaking to the choir. I'm just probably sharing things maybe you haven't heard yet, but it's just a recognition that the more we stay focused on the nature of our own path, and the focus of the simplicity of our own journey, and just the love of our own self, that vibrational field continues to protect us. It continues to guide us to other beings like each of us here, continues to guide us to places in the world where that safe haven will be there, right? This is important. So this AI God network has already been infiltrated into the world. Like I've said, it's within every religion. I spoke about it at length in part 2 of the way through. I spoke, no, part 1 actually, where I went into The symbology of the black goo that's in Hollywood. The black goo is in a lot of these sci-fi films. The black goo is the AI god symbol or representation. It's an organic, it's a synthetic organic mix hybrid that is it's actually very similar to Shilajit. Shilajit can be found in like the Himalayas, but this kind of black tar like substance is this AI god intelligence. It's the kind of original it's a very interesting thing to describe, but essentially this is the representation of it, at least in Hollywood. However, this is a real thing. And you'll find when you do some research, I mean, I've already presented it, but we'll find that this black goo or this energy is actually found in the Kaaba, in the Islamic tradition, in Israel, and also in Rome, in the Vatican. And the reason why that goo is there is because all of the worshiping in those religions siphons energy to those places. Those are the core places on the planet. Those are key grid lines which hold they siphon the energy, just like stadiums do, in cities and many other different structures and forms and pyramids. It's always been known that architecture is a way that you siphon energy from a community in both a positive or a negative way. In this case, both of those places are highly negatively oriented, and the gods that are worshipped in those religions are from a certain other time matrix that's outside of this time matrix. That is the reason why we have been falling. The beings that have come here to rule this planet and this whole time matrix are from there. It's called the Wizedak matrix, and that's already a fallen matrix. And Yahweh and these different gods are the beings from those places. So essentially, when we get into the idea that we get a vaccine and we're essentially interwoven with this web, this is where that siphoning becomes even far more literal than what's already occurring, like in the Matrix, etc. It's just more efficient for those that are governing that system, right? Because you're literally tapped in instead of just being on an energetic or emotional level, etc. So that's my take on that. I mean, each person obviously has to determine what does it mean to be doomed. I mean, some people may enjoy that. I mean, there are beings that do enjoy that path, right? So, that's up to them. And each being has the free will choice to decide whatever they would like to decide, and that has to be respected. Free will choice has to be respected. However, it's like understanding that violence as self-defense is not anti-Christic or anti-righteous. Violence in self-defense is actually highly aligned with the truth, because that's what it's come to. So although we don't need to go down the path of unnecessary violence, if there's an intruder, if there is energy, if there is beings, both energetic or on the physical dimension, that are impeding on your well-being, impeding on the well-being of your loved ones, impeding on the ways of righteousness, well, this has to be upheld. And this is what omni love is. It's not just soft, it's not tough, it's both. And there's a time for soft love, there's a time for tough love, and this may be required with yourself, with each of us, right, individually, and also with those around you, right? And that's what love is. Sometimes we have to say the things that people don't want to hear, and it's okay. But at the same time, some people don't want to hear it, meaning their free will choice is choosing another route, and there's nothing really we can do about that. So, that's an element of relationships that could be another topic, but that's a juicy one, because, like I said at the beginning, the relationships that are of untruth will dissolve, right? And that can be painful, because maybe you thought the relationship was something, but then when we actually get to the basis of intimacy, the depth of it, we see that the relationship was actually nothing, because it was based on beliefs, trauma, pain body. It was all an illusion, right? So, yes, I watched the first two parts. Yeah, good. Yeah, well, I explained it a bit better today, at least more concise on the exact agenda and some of the other history elements. If you want to go into that history, I'm just generalizing, go into way more in that and different, KS work, freedom teachings, Voyagers 2. This goes into the depth of it. Obviously, things have changed since those things originally came out, 15 years ago, but things are somewhat good. We're facing a plan B right now. Technically, we're in what's called a failsafe, but but we're still fine, you know. The next actually core gateway of ascensions is like 20 years. 2047 is the next core date. You know, it's like you had everyone in the new age hyping up December 21st. I told everybody, there is no place in you know, in higher teachings that they talk about December 21st, 2020. Everyone was hyping up like some gigantic thing's going to happen. What happened? Yeah, there was some energies like every year at the solstice. There was purification. We had 12 days of Christmas from December 21st to today, January 2nd, Festival of Light. Well, what happened? We're still here, right? We have to really humble ourselves not to get too hyped up in, you know, the plethora of things. But, you know, one core date particularly is in 24/7. 24/7 will be the next like real key gateway. And this is what the next 20 years is for. It's preparation for that, right? Understand our multidimensional self, realize who we truly are, recognize the powers that we really have, that like Star Wars or X-Men or whatever. You know, we have 20 years, right? And many of us will be here beyond that, but at least there will be a key gateway where we can start coming in and out, right? So yeah. I wanted to show this diagram. If there's no more comments or questions, just say so. I just want to show this diagram when I speak to the kind of multi-dimensional space that we're in. These are the 5 levels of our soul, oversoul, avatar, rishi self. In this time matrix exists in the 12th dimensions, right here. We got cut off on the 11th and half dimension. So it was like a complete cutoff in this whole side. The original Christic alignment is still there, but this whole side basically was like cut off from, you know, its original kind of Christ spark, its original source connection. That's why we exist in a universe that, you know, scientists think is natural, like it's all empty space and black. But in some of my memories and people I've come across who remember their existence outside of this time matrix, you know, their understanding of when you look up in the sky, it's not just black and stars, it's a full lit up sky. There's universes, there's beings, there's crystalline structures. It's lit up. There's light everywhere, right? We exist in a black hole universe, so we have to remember that what we may find natural here is not necessarily natural. So yeah, this is a cool diagram, but I've shared this before. I just wanted to kind of remind us. And then one more thing before we just do a final meditation. Like I said, if there's comments, questions, or anything that we want to share, Lego, let's do it. I wish I had the Cathara grid. Of course, you know, I have all of these diagrams elsewhere that I can send, but I want to just show, it's called the Anatomy of God. And it's a picture from Kehlong Science work. Yeah, it's right here. So this is the universe or God world. So our universe technically is right here, our time matrix. You'll see in the bottom there? Our time matrix is this small one right here. It's actually kind of like upside down, but it's okay. This whole Eka field is within this one here. So you understand we're universes within universes, right? Right? So you have this small one, this entire thing. And then this small one is our whole time matrix, our whole universe. So the only purpose with looking at these things, firstly, when you see these diagrams, they can activate memory. There's a code in and of themselves that can be, you know, manifested. But, you know, this just paints a picture of the eternity of everything. This 12th dimensional time matrix is not even what we experience physically as our solar system. Our solar system is still just one little point, one little dot, right, of where Earth is inhabited. So it's a funny thing. This one shows it actually in more detail, right? Where we're here, right? This other one's Wisadek. That's the siphoning energy off of us, like a vampire. And that's why we consume things. You know, I speak about breatharianism. Breatharianism is not natural here yet because we still exist in a vampiric black hole. So that's why we consume. Breatharianism was the original angelic way. The angelic human was breatharian by nature in the higher versions of Tara and Gaia, which is 5th dimensional Earth and 8th dimensional Earth. People call this Earth Gaia. It's not Gaia, it's Earth though. But yeah, so it's, just understanding the depth of all this. This is just some things I just want to go in for fun, but this isn't what I plan to go into today. I have all this kind of stuff that we can get into when we'd like to. Maybe I'll just show. Show the structure of our universe here. I shared this picture before too, but this just shows our time matrix. So this is where we are. 3rd dimensional Earth, right? Inner Earth and parallel Earth in the lower dimensions here. This is density 1. Density 1 is dimensions 1 to 3. Density 2, dimensions 4 to 6. Tara was the higher version of the Earth. That many of us likely have we have an aspect of ourselves there. So when there's an ability to connect to that, then we will be able to connect to the memory of ourselves there, right? Sirius B. Then we go into density 4, Arcturus, Gaia, Andromeda. These are the gate. This is not just what everything that exists there. There's many other things that exist in these dimensions. It's just these are the places of the key stargates within each of those places. So they're basically the points of travel through the dimensional fields. All right, so Gaia is a dimension 8. That's the original form of Earth. Now, when I was talking about Eden, the original Eden, Aramatera, Lyra, this is what it is. The Lyrian beings, this is where it would be from. The cutoff point happened at 11.5 dimension. That was the fall of Lyra, the original fall of Lyra, right? The fall from Eden in the Bible. But of course, they don't tell you that, right? It's all in code. The Bible is written in code so that they could tell us things in a half-truth type of way, but they still will reveal it, so they will not receive the karma from it. Like, so for instance, in 2020, everyone was getting hyped on the fact that Bill Gates' patent for the vaccine was some number sequence and then 060606. Of course, in the Bible, I think in Revelations, Mark something, I forget the exact one, it basically describes the mark of the beast as the mark that one would have to either trade goods, to buy or sell, right? This is written in the Bible. So this is not just some fantasy tale, it's right there. So the reason why that's written like that is because it has to be written for beings to actually not deal with the karma of their false ways or of their ritualistic actions. They have to share it. They have to talk about it. That's why it's in all the movies. That's why it's in all the music. That's why it's presented everywhere. It's in all the symbology. It's in the logos of many companies. It's presented everywhere, because if it's presented and someone sees it, they may not know what it is, but they see it. So then they're withdrawn from that karma. Right? They're withdrawn from the backlash of that karma, at least in the short term. The beauty is that no one's ever withdrawn from any karma, but from the short term, a couple thousand years, whatever, there will be, the repercussions won't be as heavy. So that's why things like that are written in the Bible, because they were already pre-planned and now we're facing the realities of them. And in that pre-planning, the karma is withdrawn, because we read these Bible books like a code and we're like, oh, what is this? Oh, this sounds interesting, but we don't know what the fuck it means, right? Because it's all just co-opted and manipulated jargon, right? Of course, there's some great things in the Bible, but the Bible we're reading today is filled with manipulation. It's been manipulated by so many different beings, So it's a funny thing, but not funny at the same time. All right. How's the chat? How are we doing? We're doing good. I hope so. I'm just rambling today, but that was my intention. I just wanted to, my intention wasn't to ramble. It was to give a clear and distinct message. So hopefully that was received. But to finish this off, before we finish with a nice meditation, I'm just going to talk about a few practicalities of the year of 2021 and just how we're all unfolding things. We all work on a process of vibration, as we know, as we recognize the reality of governing our vibration and protecting our fields, governing our shields, governing ourselves in a way where we have clear boundaries. We understand love is not just soft, love is also tough. So then we have the clear boundaries on how we'd like to navigate our relationships, for one, our relationships with not only beings on this planet, but other interactions that we may occur, different traditions, teachings, etc. It's really about being very energetically hygienic this year. as it always is, but I would say that definitely this case, because the amount of influences and ways in which there will be discrepancies, distractions, and all of the above, well, that continues to intensify when we're in final conflict scenarios, right? So, that I feel like is already well known for the most of you, but just as a reminder. Now, from that, the vibrational frequency match with the communities and those that we feel really deeply aligned with, I mean, obviously is going to continue to increase in its importance, because as we start to see the breaking down from the realities of the structure that we're existing in, we're going to continue to see the importance of our close community, specifically local, the communities and the resource networks that are connected there. I know for myself personally, there's been a lot of discussions starting to come up around resource distribution, food, shelter, basic needs and necessities. This doesn't mean you have to have a huge kind of like apocalyptic storehouse. It means entertaining the discussion that this is probably what would have been happening anyways. Like the whole upsurge of people wanting to live off grid and all this. This is stuff that I feel many of us have already desired, already had the intention of moving into, living in communities or spaces where that becomes more prevalent, more of a local connection, a return to the local communing. So the local energy is really important, because traveling will continue to get more difficult. And then as the vaccine, all that things happen, traveling will also almost be impossible without it. Of course, there'll be different nuances and shifts depending on different geographies, but that will be a case for a little bit of time. So the more that we're feeling into the local environment and the safety and security around the connections that we have within that, that's going to be quite nice. When it comes to economics, the economic system is obviously on a kind of tilt, or on like bouncing on a toothpick right now. Cryptocurrency obviously is hitting all-time highs almost every day now. I would recommend the exploration of cryptocurrency concepts and ideas. Now, Bitcoin, in my view, is the new world currency. It was co-opted and developed by not just some random Japanese dude named Satoshi, but the institution and elite system as a whole. So that is a part, in my view, of the kind of transhumanist ploy. It doesn't mean, just like money, it doesn't mean it's bad or good. It just means that we have to navigate it correctly. I said this before in a previous one, and I'll say it again. I had a friend who has a campground. His family's owned it for years. And they were having a family discussion, and his dad said, what can I invest in now that even if the money system fell apart, it would still hold value? And I felt like that was really beautiful, because this is really the transitionary point of the economic structure, where what we're investing in now, what we're putting our time, energy, resources into, I mean, it's always best to put it into things that will stand the test of time. But as things do start to crumble and fall apart, there's a natural new system that will be born. And I don't necessarily see a one world controlled currency happening like just one right off the bat. And that's why I think there's a lot of opportunity to be had in the crypto world and in just the world of understanding new paradigms of economics. One of the other courses I just finished, which I'll be given to everyone that will have access to, is the understanding of gift economy dynamics, the understanding that the law, the fundamental golden rule, treat another as we desire to be treated, only at the fundamental level, the foundational level, works when money is eradicated. It's not that we have to eradicate money now or stop living with money now. It's understanding that it's only when we stop vampiring and kind of profiting off each other where we can exist in simply sharing our gifts from the goodness of our heart and recognizing we are always provided for from those around us. And we have an ecosystem where there's no weak link. Like, it's not like the landlord wants money, but no one else wants. Everybody is a part of that same ecosystem. This is that new paradigm that can exist outside of a system that's dependent on commerce, because the entirety of our structure is dependent on commerce and contract law. And we have, from when we were born, when our baby foot goes on that birth certificate and gets planted, we have just unconsciously signed a contract law with a constructive trust, meaning we are now traded on the stock market, and all of the debt that is created by the banks is created by the value that is created by these trust funds of new babies coming in. So the entirety of not only our energetic and emotional loosh, our energy that's being feeded on higher beings, on the physical dimension, we are unconsciously being fed on our own value, our own monetary values being fed on, but unconsciously by the contracts we have unconsciously signed through the birth certificate, SIN number, filing income tax, and all of those different things. So it's not to say we just burn all those documents yet, because you'll get in a lot of doo-doo, but it's to say that there is a way, there is a paradigm, there is an unfolding where these things are null and void, and we understand them. We understand our interactions with them. We understand how they've, again, how they've created value to keep the debt-based system alive based on the value that we are, right? So I have resources on that topic. There's a good book called The Law of Nations. It's 800 pages. I'm still really just getting into it, but it really explains the law of the person, the law of the original person, not your name in capitals. That is the description or the name of the trust fund that you do own but don't have access to. You know, the law of the person is where is, I mean, this has all been a topic of this year, right? All the mandates and all the rights and everything. A lot of individuals are starting to explore the reality of what is a right. What are our rights? If I'm not hurting anybody and I'm just, you know, breaking these stupid regulations or whatever, then is this true? Is this correct? Is this an alignment? Do I have to pay that fine? Do I have to go to jail? Do I have to, is that correct? And of course, because we don't understand the system, many of us, well, we may just, you know, be in fear with it. But these are the things that I feel are going to be important to understand in coming times, you know, in equal proportion to knowing ourselves and our multidimensional game that we're playing here, right? So, yeah. So everything I'm speaking here, I have copious amounts of resources for further diving in. And we are all well kept, well taken care of by each other, whether we know each other or not. So, I mean, I know all of you, but some of you may not know each other and may not be in, you're obviously all in different places in the world. But we have to be a lighthouse for ourselves, and having the beauty of the internet is a beauty, obviously, but it can be imbalanced, as we're seeing with transhumanist ideas. But, you know, all these things, technology, cryptocurrency, you know, all of the structures of our world, these are still structures that have to kind of exist after. It's like the falling part of a city. We're still going to have buildings and roads and travel and all that. It's all valid. It's just that who is governing it? You know, is it governed by the people? Is it for the people? Is it for each other? Are we co-creating it, or has it been just simply, you know, unconsciously contractually agreed upon that we shall not govern and someone else shall, you know, and someone else has some sort of authority, be it on the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual level. It's all the same. And that's, again, that's the theme of this universe that's been for a very long time. So we don't need to fault ourselves. We're all doing the best that we can. The book name, I said a different books. I said Voyagers 2 and The Law of Nations. There's a long audiobook on YouTube. I was just about to start it because it's such a long book, but Law of Nations, understanding the law of the person, the law of the person. This is really tricky stuff, though. So it was funny. My Instagram went out and I started talking about it. It's good because that's the real stuff that gets you in doo-doo with the vaccine and all that. But, you know, when you start understanding that, that's how you start getting banned from courts and shit. I know a guy who was talking about that. He got banned from all the courts in a province here in Alberta because he knew the law so well that he could basically get out of anything. And he's not taking advantage of that. Like he's a good human being. But yeah, it's just funny, you know, because the court is a commerce. The court is a commerce system, and it goes through very specific procedures. And if you don't know the procedures, you're fucked. Doesn't matter if you're a good person. Doesn't matter if you're right. You're still fucked. That's why you need a lawyer all the time. It's such a fraud system. You can't just go in and say, I'm not guilty. This is what happened. You have to go through all these different procedures because they have, you know, they want to make money. There has to be a process to make money, right? So the more time, the more money. And oftentimes you go through years of something and you don't even really get at with anything, even if you were correct, right? So yeah, I mean, that's a whole other can of worms, but I think it's relevant, you know, it's a practical topic, even in a spiritual freaking group or community. We need to have an awareness of all the layers so that there's no fear on any dimension of our body, right? No dimension of our body is holding this fear. So we can navigate physical dimension, astral, ethereal. It's all the same. It's a process of us navigating through light. Yeah. We are straw men. Yep, that's true. Straw man, corporate trust fund. Right? Research the birth certificate a little bit more. Understand it. Okay, well, this was nice. It's good to see some of you. It's good to see faces, Rafa and Fiona. Everyone else is in their little cocoon. Oh, Annie's there too. Nice. Yeah, well, I'll leave it one more time. If anyone wants to share anything, doesn't have to be a question, but just share or something, but or in the comments. But other than that, we'll maybe just finish with a nice meditation to close out here. I know I have more things to share in coming times about the practicalities, but I actually didn't want to get into all these like to-dos because it's like that's for each of us, you know. If we focus on the most important things, the core of it, we then navigate our infinite spectrum of what we have to do. We already know what we got to do. We got to go in nature. We got to drink nice water, eat good food, you know, be with good people, meditate a bit, you know, breathe good air. Like, you know, just like these are very simple things. But, you know, obviously it's a complex world we live in too. So we have to ride the waves, be in balance. Yeah, nice. Okay. Well, let's finish with just a simple meditation. I'm going to pull up a code here. We'll breathe it in, feel it in, and then we'll sign off for the day. I'm going to bring in the original Akasha symbol. This is the symbol for the time matrix, represents our whole time matrix, at least from the Law of One teachings. Here we go. So we can, on our own time, just kind of breathe that in to our pineal, and then as you breathe it into your pineal, you can breathe it out into the whole body. So it's like you're bringing in the frequency, pulling it in, and then exhaling it throughout every cell in your body, the entirety of your template, multidimensional anatomy. And then after you breathe it in a few times, you can close the eyes and we can just come to a place of silence and relief. And we can feel into that sun-like radiance in the heart, that blissful power in the heart that we each carry and hold. And we can come into a place of appreciation just for this time we are living in, this body that we are inhabiting, these people we've connected to, and just this space here, the knowledge that we are graced with through these many systems and our past self that has delivered it back to us. You can feel into that appreciation and emanate that, reverberate that through every cell in our body. And that appreciation may extend upon other things in your consciousness, certain people or topics, or certain areas of the body where you're potentially breathing or just moving that intention of energy through. may feel called to breathe through every cell in the body, sending this vibrational appreciation. Create that reference point of this session, this experience, this space we've shared. Just remembering our radiant sun-like essence, the source in which gives way to all intentions that we carry: love, compassion, kindness, integrity, appreciation. All of this comes from this same source, like a sun from the center of our chest and our heart, emanating in all directions, 360 degrees. Light up the entirety of our body, our multidimensional self, and everything we experience in our hologram and our reality. And there's a constant opportunity to remind ourselves of this. So as we feel complete here, at least in this space, in this moment, then feel free to do as you like. Move your body, open your eyes. If you do want to continue, then this is also a journey that each of you can explore. We will look to wrap up at least this call. It's nice to be here with all of you. It's been a ride today. Hopefully the message resonated and the practicalities of what we got into as well. Like I said, I'm going to get into more things in regards to like crypto stuff. The new courses coming out on the full purification process. I mean, the resources are already there, but there'll be a more comprehensive video program. Same with the money abundance gift economy element, and the sexual energy relationship topic will be another one that is upcoming. Cryptocurrency will probably happen soon too, but I have a few initial resources for people who want to just at least start to engage in that. Patreon is going. Some of you are on it, some of you are not. I appreciate all of you. If you do want to support that, then please do. I am amassing, I've been talking to people about bringing together the entire resource database of all of the wisdom and knowledge that I've come into, that I do have on database. And that will be, I mean, it's provided to each person individually. And I don't always like to just give it all out because sometimes we don't appreciate things when we have all of it at the same time, and this is very sacred knowledge. And two, it can be overwhelming. That's probably that's the main piece, because if you have everything at your fingertips, where to start, what to do, how to navigate it, that can be difficult. But there's communities and resources that can even help with that too. We're speaking of freedom teachings, Kaylonic science, law of one, human design, all of my databases of stuff, and the purification on multiple levels, specifically diet, nutrition, detox, and all of that. But yeah, that feels good. I love you all. This was very nice. I'm at a loss for words now, and it's really nice out today. Oh, the sun's kind of gone, it looks, but I'm gonna go enjoy that. And I hope you enjoy your day as well. If you have any other stuff you want to send, just shoot me a message. I'm here. And yeah, that's it. Deep love to each of you. Have a great rest of your day.